All right. Well, hey, so welcome everybody. No special guest this time. It's just a couple of members here of the Community Education Committee and your lovely faces. So, welcome to Doug. What is this? The fourth happy hour?
Sounds good.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, because John, yeah. So this is number four. So welcome to the fourth happy hour. This one kind of came together last minute because we went, oh, right. But we felt it was important to go do this. And of course, it's also that time of year when we're all talking about New Year's resolutions, or since I'm very Californian in my outlook on life, instead of thinking about resolutions, I'm going to talk about intentions and aspirations. Need a little bell to go off there. Ding. Sit in a lotus position. But we figured this is the perfect time of year to kind of talk about that, to have a little bit more fun talking amongst each other. Uh, Jeff, did you get your whole calendar together to show people
Oh my gosh. So I don't really build a calendar so much
for
as
your schedule?
as as lay out a schedule, and I number each one where it's like my planned position throughout the year. I'm actually looking at my Beersmith window on my other screen. So um
Perfect.
yeah, I'm kind of a weirdo. I plan to brew at least 12 beers a year. It's always the goal to do one a month with busy lives and schedules and all that kind of thing. So that's the intent, right? And the intent is always to kind of like brew using a new ingredient that I'm not familiar with, or a new technique or a new style. And usually I try to incorporate all three of those things into my planning.
Hmm.
A lot of times it's also things that I'm working on perfecting. I'll share a snip of a beer that I've been working on um, that got several iterations of. I work in IT, so everything's got like a software naming convention, and you can tell where I've backtracked from newer, higher versions back to old versions and given minor version naming and all kinds of weird stuff. So
Yeah, I was going to say, are we on V3.1.0?
I've
Eight.
actually backtracked to 2.5, and now I'm on 2.5.3. So
There we go. Nerd. Of
uh-huh.
course, am I a nerd for also knowing that? All right, so real quick before we get too deep into the weeds, just a usual reminder, these are the HA happy hours put on by the Community and Education Committee. I'm the chair, Doug is the co-chair, or actually, sorry, Doug's my, yeah, co-chair. Make sure we use proper titles because titles matter. And our goal is here every month to have a little bit more loose, a little bit more informal, a little bit more chatty version of all this sort of stuff. And these are in conjunction with the Zymergy Lives. We're going to be this stuff will also appear on YouTube. The idea is, hey, more content, more beer talk. So here we go. And as I said right up front, this is going to be all about homebrew aspirations, resolutions for the year, etc. Hopefully, Denny will come in a little bit and talk as well. Jeff's got a schedule that we wanted to show you and share. Hopefully, inspire some ideas from y'all, get some ideas back from y'all, share it out with the community. Um, but here's the one big rule that I will remind everybody about. Uh, Practice good Zoom hygiene. That's not the big rule. That's just standard practice. So practice good Zoom hygiene. Keep yourself on mute unless you are going to talk. And then also follow Wheaton's law. This is actually the important rule. Follow Wheaton's law, which is don't be a dick. All right. So we are all here as homebrew lovers and homebrewers. So be kind, rewind, and drink another beer. Speaking of which, I'm actually breaking my rules for these things where usually I don't actually drink while I'm doing these things because I prefer to stay in control. But this is going to tie into one of my aspirations for the year. Again, like I said, I'm in California and I kind of prefer to think not in resolutions because resolutions seem awfully Procrustean. Instead, I'd rather do something that's a little bit more aspirational. And I discovered this one over, or I should say, I rediscovered this one over the winter break. And it is from Santa Barbara's Third Window Brewing Company, which is a great brewing company, pizzeria, winery, etc. And these guys make fantastic beer. And very unusually for a lot of American breweries these days, they still make a lot of Belgian styles, which, yay! And if you know me and my writings and the things I talk about, you will know that I love a good saison. So this, though, is their petite saison, which they had in cans, and kind of hard to see if you can see that on the screen there. 3.8%. Now, originally when I went to go pick that up, I hadn't realized it was 3.8%. I thought it was like, 4 or 5. Uh, but I will tell you right now, this is really good. And it doesn't suffer from the usual problem that I think a lot of lightweight Belgian beers do, which is that they get very, very thin, very, very watery, and really taste more like somebody put spices in a bad cup of tea. And so in this particular case, this one actually has some body to it. It has some flavor, and it actually still has some good heft to it. Uh, so one of my intentions for this year, I'm not going to say I'm going to clone this because I take a page out of Denny's handbook, which is like there are no such things as beer clones. There are beer homages. So I'm not going to clone this. I am going to try and learn the lessons from this year and brew up a couple of really good lightweight Belgian beers. Uh, in part just because it's nice to have something that I can have on a Thursday night and not feel like I'm about to go snooze very quickly, right? If I sit there and I have too many of my good super saisons, which come at like 8.5, 9%, then I will go and snooze, and I'd really rather not do that. So that's me kicking off with one of my aspirations for this year. Douglas, do you got an aspiration for the year?
Mine is mostly perfecting my small batch. Not any one particular recipe. It's more what I get inspired to do.
So
Um,
now, when you say small batch,
I want more details.
G- Generally about gallon and 3/4 to 2 gallons at the most. I really I've got a whole bunch of big equipment down there, and I just find small batches. I'd rather brew less more often. The other thing I was going to add, Drew, just for conversation, we don't have that many of us on here.
Mhm.
Do we want to encourage everybody to keep their mics open so we can chat and keep this? If it becomes
Sure.
cumbersome, I just I don't want to encumber conversation, and because this is the opposite, and the intention is to be kind of the opposite of the
Yep.
Zymergy lives. We want this to be a live conversation.
Yeah, again, but I would just say practice good Zoom hygiene. Keep the mic open when you have things that you want to talk about and you're in the conversation. Otherwise, mute it so that we don't hear your dogs going crazy in the background.
Yeah.
You might hear one of mine before too long. Um, so, but yeah, so Doug, you're saying small batches. I like that. Yeah, I've been playing around more with like 2.5, 3 gallon size batch, just
My
because
standard batch has been right there for a long time, 2.5, three
really.
gallons. Yeah. I
But
still use
but
all
isn't
my old 5 and 6 gallon equipment. I didn't buy anything new to do that. So.
But isn't it so funny like how we've got that 5 gallon thing so wired into the
Oh,
hobby?
yeah.
In
How
some
every
ways,
kit on the market is a 5 gallon kit. Yeah.
yeah. And in some ways it feels like it's really hard to like do some of the mechanics at the smaller size. Eh, it is what it is.
Well, but you buy a kit and just split it. For the most
Mhm.
part, you can. And even the yeast, I've had good luck. If you got some dry yeast, just open it up and put it in a vacuum sealer, pull all the air out of it, and it does fine.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So Jeff, we'll dig into your schedule a little bit later, but
Yeah.
aspiration, intention, resolution for the year.
Oh, man. So at the end of last year, I bought a half a pound of spruce tips and some juniper berries and tips. And something that's been kind of in the back of my head for a really long time is to nail a satie,
Okay.
kind of a weird old historical Lithuanian style, right? So that's on my list. That's my one of my new styles to me for the year to crank out.
And can I just ask, I mean, have you had a saute before, or is this just
Nope,
like it sounded like a great idea?
I'm
Let's
just
do this.
going into this completely blind. Sounded weird and interesting, and that's kind of my style. So we're gonna get after it.
All right, perfect.
I got to ask one question, though. I've wanted to do that too, but I've been afraid whether you got food grade juniper berries and spruce tips.
They all come from trees. They're all food.
Well, some of them aren't good for you. So I just wonder, how do you know?
They came from what I assume is a reputable company. A friend that has used this company in the past, offered up kind of like a group buy to save shipping. You know how it goes. Um, And so that's how I ended up with them. I actually used some of the spruce tips already in a Norwegian inspired farmhouse. And they're very nice, very citrusy, a little bit resiny, really great.
Do they are they still springy?
Hmm.
Yay.
And so when we brewed this beer, I have a kettle and the dip tube is maybe a quarter of an inch off the bottom of the kettle at most. And I was sure that uh, we would be able to run off and into the fermenter with no problems. And wouldn't you know, like one stick went right up in the dip tube and plugged the whole system up. So it was a mess.
Oh,
We fought to get 3 gallons out of my kettle.
Hold on one second. Yeah. All right. So that's our intentions. Did anybody else got any other intentions? I will say I have one other one, which is my big intention for the year is to make sure that HomebrewCon in Nashville is a kick-ass party. So there you go. Company business. All right. So boys and girls, those of you who are sitting out there online, anybody want to, be so bold as to step out and say, this is my intention for the year? Just come off your mics. Unmute.
I'll start. Andy here. I think my one of my big ones is to not be afraid or embrace dry hopping for European style lagers. So I've always avoided it. I've been all about the late, hopping in the kettle, and I'm just gonna go because I've not quite hit the hop character I want for my stuff. I don't want to go like hoppy West Coast Pilsner, but I just want a little bit more out of some of my European hops.
Come on, Andy. You could go for a Timbo, right? Timbo's
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, I can get that local though. So
For anybody who's not watching the chat, Andy and I are both in Southern California and both trying to stay secure as the winds are blowing tonight in an ill-fated anniversary wind party. All right, so that's Andy. Drew, I think you'd come off mute for a half a second.
I did. Yep. I was gonna say there. So there are two things that I try to brew one of every year. One is I do a lambic inspired sour ale that I then age on local farmers market plums for at least 3 months. So I gotta do that one.
Hmm,
And every year I do a mead in January so I can age it for the next Christmas.
nice.
And the
And
third thing on my to-do list is the first batch I ever did was a sketchy uh, liquid malt extract brown ale. So for
mhm.
my 100th batch, I'm going to recreate that, but try to do everything I've learned since then and make this one actually good.
Just
There,
gonna
see, I have to admit, I'm fully jealous sometimes of the people who can look down and go, "Oh, this is batch number 152," that I've ever brewed because it turns out my notes are scattered amongst multiple laptops, multiple notebooks, and multiple websites. So I have no freaking clue
Uh,
anymore.
Mine
I
are too, but I managed to keep track of the number as it moved from medium to medium. So
la
there you go.
last year
Nice.
was my
Um, let
last
me
year was
ask you
my
about the plum lambic though.
yeah.
Um, Like, okay, so you do that and you age it on the plums. Like, how long are you how long are you on the plums? How long does it take before you get it, ready to drink?
So I usually do at least 90 days and then put on the plums for at least 90 days. Um, and then my batch from last year has now been, according to Brewfather,
Hmm.
in the bottle for 371 days so far.
And do you have a magic window for when you want to dry it
90
out?
and 90 seems to work. And I've been drinking them ever since. As soon as they're conditioned, you start drinking them.
Now, do you do like uh do you try and do like multicultural pitches? Or are you just using like a blended
So
pitch?
I've done two things. The one that works better is Bootleg Biology's Sour Solera blend is pretty solid. And then I've tried a poor man's lambic, a hoi pollombic, as I call it, which is a not sour VZ, the other one, um,
Philly sour.
Philly sour. and then you add a Brett culture when you put the plums in.
Okay.
But that one came out. That one tends to get too sour. The sour Solera has a better mellow kind of balanced sourness to it.
Hmm.
The Philly sour, when I think there's so much simple sugar from the fruit that it
Right.
does too much lactic acid and it gets a little too sour.
That's good.
And
And I heard a bad rumor that Bootleg Biology wasn't shipping homebrew cultures anymore, and I hadn't reached out to Jeff about that.
they're still on their website.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I think that's just a nasty
And
rumor
they had
still.
gone, at least for a while, they had gone to seasonal order, like they were doing
Right.
a batch like quarterly or something like that. So I don't know if I haven't ordered since last year, so I don't know for sure. But I know you can still pick them on their website.
I guess I should email them, find out. I've been bummed ever since East Coast Yeast went out of business because they had some really awesome like saison strains. Jerks. All right. So we heard from Andy and Drew, and for me, this is way too many of the Andrew
Yeah.
posse involved in here. This might be the largest concentration of homebrewing Andrews out there.
I was just
Um,
gonna interject real quick before we move on. So on the topic of brewing your 100th batch as your first extract batch all over again, last year was my 10th brewing anniversary, and I brewed my first beer all over again using all of the stuff that I learned. Turned out exactly the same.
okay, well, here, quick roundtable, real quick. First beer that you brewed, if you can remember it, mine was a Sierra Nevada extract with grains clone or inspired beer, pale ale. Dougie,
It was actually an all grain porter, and it turned sour rather rapidly, but I was proud of it.
there you
It was
go, Mr.
dark and alcoholic.
and most importantly, cheap-ish. Um, Jeff, what'd you say the first one that you did was?
Yeah, it was so Midwest back in the day had a partnership with a Minneapolis coffee shop called Peace, and it was their Peace Java Stout.
Oh, there you go. Well, and coffee forgives a lot of sins. Anybody else want to chime in with what your first beer was? Drew, you sort of inspired this one accidentally, so
Yeah. So I can say it was a liquid malt extract brown ale, American brown ale, but I'm gonna do my 100th as slightly more British. But I did everything like I poured the liquid in and it sank straight to the bottom and scorched, and I had strips of scorched extract swirling around with the hops, and it was drinkable. I'll say that.
I'm noticing
Still
in that
made beer.
yeah, I'm noticing the
Nobody
elongation
died.
in that elongation though that drinkable is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that phrase. All right, anybody else want to chime in with what was your first beer that you made?
I just checked my notes. It was a red ale with liquid and dry malt, and it was drinkable, I guess. It was a long time ago.
Good enough to get you hooked, right?
Yeah, I mean there was something magical about that. James?
Yeah, I for my first brew ever, I did a blonde. It was all grain. It was on the stove top. And I repeated the same recipe every time I've changed my brewing process. So that so I moved from the stovetop to outdoor with a propane, and then I got a all-in-one electric. So I repeat. It's kind of my first attempt at a new process recipe, an all grain blonde. The last batch was actually okay.
So part science and part ritualistic totem. I
Yeah,
like it.
I would leaning more toward ritualistic than science yet.
I mean, look, I still have the bad habit of because at one point in time my wife, I think off of Amazon or something like that, bought a couple hundred sticks of like just Buddhist prayer incense. Uh, I have a plethora in one of these cabinets back here behind me. And so every time before a brew day, I always light a stick of prayer incense. No particular reason. Just it's what I do. It gets you in the mindset. All right. Uh, Anybody else want to jump in there with either what was your first beer or what an intention, aspiration, resolution is for this year? It's gone quiet. All right. Uh, Round two, Doug. Any other aspirations, intentions, or resolutions?
Well, HomebrewCon is certainly a big focus since it's very close to my home, less than an hour's drive away. So that's probably between the small batch brewing and other things going on, that's going to dominate a lot of my spring and summer, early summer.
Yeah, and I'm going to assume that most of the people on here know, but just in case, HomebrewCon will be in June. It's going to be in Asheville, North Carolina. The further details like hotel and all that sort of fun stuff, when to buy tickets, will be coming out relatively soon, as everything gets sort of solidified. I'm still trying to figure out if we can't have a party at the pinball museum, because the pinball museum in downtown Asheville sounds like a hell of a thing to have a beer and play some games. Uh, might have to convince the pinball people that's okay to give us beer. Um, I'll say one goofy intention that I have is I just got one of the little tie or sorry tilt I forget what they call it, like the tilt pico or whatever, which is like the thing that allows you to get better coverage through stainless steel, right? Because I have a couple of stainless steel conicals over there. So my intention is to finally get my tilts running through that thing and actually recording all my numbers in a judicious and continuous process, as opposed to what I usually do, which is, oh, I forgot to do that. Um, Drew saying 6 hours, 6 hours for Asheville for him, but still the closest one since the one that would have been in Nashville. Yeah, something happened to the one in Nashville. I can't remember. Oh, wait. Um, yeah, for me, I have to look at it and go, oh yeah, that's about a 6 hour flight. Um,
3 stops in between.
One usually. I have been in Nashville before. I did a BYO boot camp there one year. It was Denny, myself, and Marshall Schott did a seminar for BYO that was like a day-long seminar about experimentation and using experimentation to drive your brewing.
I don't know if you remember, Drew. I was there.
You were, yes, that's right. I totally I do remember that you were
How
there.
could I forget?
Well, no, I wouldn't have thought about it until you said it, and then I was like, oh wait, yeah, you were.
I was the official photographer.
That's right. Yeah, you were running around with that big old camera going click, click, click.
That's it. But that was a great event. Y'all did a good job on it too.
Yeah, I'm a little sad that BYO isn't doing those anymore, but I think they're going to do an online version here shortly. So, all right. So, Doug, you had said that was going to take up your time. I'm trying to get the tilts all actually running so that I can look at pretty graphs and go, ooh, is there yeast on this tilt or is it actually stalled? Um, Jeff, anything else?
Oh man, I got all kinds of fun stuff. So I moved into the house that I live in now almost 5 years ago, and I gave up my induction plate brewery, nice, quiet, electric, back on propane in my garage now. And so in the spring, well, as soon as the electrician shows up at my house, because he left a bunch of stuff here a few weeks ago and hasn't been back yet, we're starting to build out on our basement, and in that is my brew space. So hopefully we get back into that and I can enjoy not being running up and down stairs to wherever the nearest water source is. That's
Hmm.
the big one. So, you know,
You
working
know,
on it.
it's funny. I had this is my garage. It's a single car garage from 1925, and I had it. We rehabbed it a couple of years ago because it didn't used to have a roof and all the nice stuff in here. And one of the things I included in there was I included 220 in the in the garage. So because my whole idea was, okay, well, fine, I'll just take my grandfather, plug it into the thing, use it, and be able to brew inside. Um, and then at some point in time, I remembered I'm in lovely Southern California, and it's rare that I can't actually just brew outside. In a lot of ways, it's easier to brew outside because I can just direct the water that way. And so I eventually went and had an electrician come back out, punch a hole through the front of the garage, tie into the exact same plug, and put an outdoor socket in, so I could go do that. If I had been really ambitious at the same time, I also had an indoor water socket put in. I should have had them
Options are
replummet.
good. Options are
Mhm.
good.
Yeah, if
Yep.
you're doing small batches, you wouldn't need 220.
Yeah. Well,
Those
I like.
110 units are so slow though.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, again, if you're
If
like
you're only boiling 6 liters,
yeah. I do still keep my 120 or 110 induction plate right back here. Again for the exact same thing, little small batch thing. Um,
Decoction.
yeah. I mean, they're just nice. Right. And I mean, look, actually, the other thing the one guaranteed use I will always say that my induction plate has every year is February is the annual Maltose Falcons chili cook-off. And so I will guarantee you that every year that induction plate will get a use, keeping my chili warm.
Keeping the pot warm.
Yep. We get to, well, it's the funniest thing. We go to that club meeting and you get like, I don't know, somewhere between 12 to 20 chilies being served. And of course, again, being Southern California, everybody's got some sort of electric device. Here's my Instapot. Here's my crockpot. Here's this, that, the other. And so it's the funniest thing because for a little while, everybody's acting like erstwhile electricians, throwing extension cords all around to try and hit different circuits so that we can all keep our chilies nice and warm. And I'm going, yeah, I might just switch over to the butane thing just to be different. Um,
It's really just the Griswold house at Christmas time. Why
yeah,
doesn't any of
exactly.
this stuff work?
So, all right. Now, Andy, you just said in the chat that you do your 2.5 gallon batches with 220 on the Anvil 6 or six and a
Mhm.
half. Do you have to play games with like the power output so that like when you're actually at a boil, you're not just like you know spitting
Yeah.
lava?
Yeah, I got to ramp it down. I think I might run it at like 75% or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I
otherwise I end up with like, kettle caramelization in about 3 seconds and about a half gallon of wort in the bottom
yeah
of the kettle by the end of the boil.
yeah. Even with my main brew rig is my grandfather G40, and that's a 220 rig, and even at a full size batch, I find I have to turn the power down during the boil because otherwise it's just going absolutely apeshit. So, uh, and then I gotta love the fact that Tom is pulling out the old school, sounding like a '90s LAN party. Oh, buddy.
I was a network engineer in a former life, so this speaks to me.
And I've been a nerd my entire life. Shocker. Uh, and yeah, I can remember lugging around a full size tower, dunga, 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 thump, and everybody, and yeah, yeah. God, those are memories and a half. And even okay, or wait, the other one, playing split screen GoldenEye, where somebody decided to get smart and put cardboard between the dividers of the two screens, so that one player is playing down here, the other player is playing up there, so you can't see where each other is. Right? I had one friend who was absolutely insistent that we do that.
Screen watchers are the worst.
All right, and so Tom's saying Quake 4. There we go. Yeah, trying to remember back then. Now, even by the time of Day of Defeat, the LAN party was usually just actual straight up on the internet. Yeah, OG Counter Strike. There you go. OG Counter Strike. I think that's the great. And I think we've wandered off topic. Go figure. Um, all right. So while we got you guys here, I figured get a little bit of something silly slash useful. Um, Mr. Jeff, you had mentioned earlier about the schedule. You want to show people the schedule?
Yeah, let's look at my really disorganized beersmith. I'm gonna
Well,
screen.
and the reason why I wanted to have this here is because again, talking about aspirations, inspirations, and all that sort of fun stuff. I think one of the biggest ones you always hear homebrewers say is, "This year I'm going to brew more." Right? I'm going to
You'll see
brew.
how much more I brew than planned actually throughout this. So, um, yeah, this is a
Well,
great.
but I think it's important for a lot of people, like if they actually set out the intention with something like a schedule or even just a list, you'd be surprised at how much more I think people would get done. You know?
And and Drew,
Yeah,
let me throw this out. While Jeff's talking about schedule, and we just finished Christmas, I'm sure everybody got a gadget. You mentioned you were talking about the tilt.
Yep.
Did anybody get an interesting gadget over the holidays that's going to help them in their brew schedule coming up?
I'm gonna let you guys chat and head over to the beer fridge right over here real quick.
Well, yeah, and like I said, I did just look it up. I got a Tilt Pico. Andy's saying that his plan is to brew less volume, with more 2.5 gallon batches. I like that. I, the real Murtis, is saying that Fermzilla all rounder for pressure fermenting. I've still been playing around with pressure fermentation. I've got, pardon the mess. Uh, I got 10-gallon corny kegs, which you can see over there, and I've been using spunding valves on those to play around. Uh, Not entirely certain. I still that I still see a good purpose for at least my use cases. Um, but then again, I tend to go for things that are very estery and nose forward. All right.
So are you
Anybody
saying
else?
you don't like pressure fermentation? Is that what you're saying?
At least for me, I think um, pressure fermentation is more fiddling, or is more chances to fail without necessarily giving me a benefit for my use.
Okay.
Right. So, yeah. So Murtis has said he's trying to use it on IPAs to eliminate oxidation. Okay, sure. But a lot of times you'll see a lot of people talking about like their intention is they want to brew more lager-like beers that are at warmer temperatures, that sort of thing. Um, Again, given how much of the stuff I brew is sort of either English or Belgian inspired, and how much I prefer open fermentation character from that, it for me and my style of brewing, there's no advantage. There's
Hmm.
additional gear and toys are fun. Uh, so don't get me wrong there. I've still got all the parts. Just usually the way I brew, it's not a good technique for my goals.
More potential risk than potential improvements.
Exactly. All right, and then I think we had a couple other answers come in there. Oh, Tom's saying he got the Palmer book on water to do a lot of experimentation stuff. Um, yeah, Jeff, you already broke out my joke. Uh, I love Palmer. Palmer's my next city over neighbor, and we used to have lunch all the time. I remember when he was writing that book, and that book has a lot of freaking great information in it. But boy, is it a soporific.
Honestly, if it's a great book, right? But an easier to use resource is the water cube in How to Brew, and John will even tell you that, right?
Yep,
Um, but
yep,
you have to be really into chemistry to really enjoy reading the water book because it's all science all the time.
yeah. Well, and I also put a shout out there for Martin Broomgard's Bruin Water.
Brewing water, yeah.
He also has a really great sort of simple water primer. Uh, a little tea about the water book, since we're all here. Um, I remember again, like I said, I remember when John was writing the book, and I got to do some beta reading on it because why not? Hey, nerd, go read this. You like beer, and he showed me a primer that was written for the back of the book, as sort of supposed to be a basic chemistry primer for knowing enough chemistry to be able to understand water chemistry. Uh, because why not? You should have the basic knowledge. And the basic primer that I was shown at the time was 50 plus pages long and delved into quantum mechanics. Now, again, I am a straight up bona fide nerd, right? I have a degree hanging right up there from MIT. I cannot hide from the idea that I am a nerd.
Doesn't get much more nerd than that.
Yeah. Um, boy, the idea of having to delve into quantum mechanics in order to be able to do water chemistry was shocking to me. So there you
That,
go.
that that's unfortunately, I think, where the hobby goes wrong.
Yeah,
Sometimes we get a little too into the weeds.
yeah, or as I like to say, a little too far up our own noses.
Uh,
And yeah, what are we all rocket surgeons? Sometimes it feels like it. Again, whenever we do the demographic surveys for the American Homebrewers Association, it is terrifying how consistent the numbers are that come back on the demographics in terms of if you are a home brewer, at least in the past, and I don't know, we'll see what the new numbers come out as. If you are a home brewer, it's something ridiculous. Like 85 plus percent of American homebrewers are white dudes between the ages of 25 to 45 who are married, have a family, and have a degree in something technical, like IT or
Mostly
engineering.
STEM. Yep.
And like Jeff, you said in former life you were a network engineer.
Yep.
I'm still a director of engineering.
I'm still an
Um,
engineer, just not a network engineer, you know? It's like,
yep. And I mean, look at the three of us here who are spotlighted. Not too far off there, except for we also have the other part of the demographic, which is usually not covered in the survey. Two-thirds of us have beards, because I know for a fact
you
that
can't make good beer without a beard.
this says John Meyer. Um, but I mean, I know for a fact that the amount of beardedness, mustachioedness in the homebrewing genre well outstrips the general population. So gotta love it. Silly stereotypes. All right, Mr. Jeffrey, are
All
you
right.
ready? Are you ready to show people how you inspire yourself to brew with the
So,
schedule?
yeah. Well, just kind of like a little background. Once upon a time, like every other home brewer on the planet, I think I wanted to open a brewery. And this kind of came out of trying to control um, input more than anything, right? Like, what ingredients am I going to keep on hand? It's always cheaper to buy in bulk, all that stuff. So I started building out a schedule. I was propagating yeast at home, all of that stuff that I think everybody gets excited about when they start in this hobby and start kind of going down the rabbit hole. Also, sorry, I'm a little aloof. I am on call tonight, so I'm triaging a ticket while I'm talking, but that all that kind of spiraled down into me figuring out how I was going to just keep a small amount of ingredients on hand at home, not have to go to the home brew shop every time I wanted to brew, all that good stuff, right? Because I want to brew when I want to brew. And so I probably started doing this in 2022 or 2023. And the goal was really just to lay out one beer a month that I was going to brew, that I could go and have ingredients on hand and just be ready to brew it all the time. So I'm gonna see if I can grab some screen sharing here, and I hope everybody can see when I get to that. But so like pretty much everybody, I have Peace Brewing software. You probably have Peace Brewing software, whether it's Beersmith or I'm gonna show a little bit of age here and say Pro Mash,
Good
um,
old Pro Mash.
or Brewfather or Brewer's Friend, whatever the case may be. I I got set up with Brad's software a long time ago, and I just have taken advantage of the cloud ever since. And so in that, you get to build file structure. Here's where my career kind of falls into this, and it's a little bit messy, but you can just kind of see everything here. So I started off initially with a folder of whatever year it was. That's the brew year that it was going to be. So in here is all of the beers that I intended to brew, and I started giving every one of them a versioning designation so that I knew if I was brewing it the first time, the second time, the 20th time, and here's the real one, 2.5.3. this started off as an idea around an ingredient, a singular ingredient, Simpsons DRC, um, and on and on and on. So you, like this year, I probably brewed just the 10 numbered beers, but outside of this structure, I have a folder of unplanned beers, and every one of these unplanned beers or meads or ciders are things that I did make. So in 2024, I brewed, the 10 beers that were in that other folder, and then I brewed all of these. So these two are beers that I brewed with local homebrew shops and local breweries, scaled up, that kind of thing. The clubs that I'm in.
Wait, hold on.
And
I have to ask, how could a cider be a surprise cider?
sometimes you're in the middle of a brew day and you go and look over at the shelf and go, hey, I have 5 gallons of apple juice on that shelf. Maybe I'll
Well, yeah,
make cider today too.
well, yeah, because that's often what I do. I go, oh look.
So I have a really fun story about that from last year. So, but like uh, surprise cider, I can't tell you the context about this particular cider. It just happened. But like I said, the intent was just to start with an initial, I'm gonna brew one beer a month and I'm gonna stick to this one beer a month. And for all of us, I'm pretty sure it just kind of spirals out of control, or controlled chaos from there to some extent. But you can see like this one was my Philly sour experiment that I did for one of my clubs to talk about. So we talked about it earlier, the amount of simple sugar that Philly sour
Hmm.
can turn into lactic acid and all that good stuff. And so,
Also, by the way, I love the fact that it's Megapot fiber without condenser.
well, so you're gonna see all my dirty secrets, because like this this equipment is on my propane burner without my condenser, because when I moved, I had to change my entire boil
Hmm.
off and all of that stuff. So it's been crazy. And then like 2025, so last year, here are the beers that I plan to brew. And this was a thing that I actually just started doing, where I started um like keying in whether or not I actually brewed these beers. And so you can see this list. There's a lot of beers in here that aren't brewed. Um, this is the beer that I'm drinking right now, or was drinking when we started. So the surprise cider of this year came off of this IPA. This IPA I brewed 10 years ago. This is probably the third beer that I ever brewed, all grain. And inside of my unplanned beers folder for this year, there might be, nope, it's not in here. See, I already messed up my own structure. The whole idea was there is no structure except for the initial schedule. And
Okay,
so
wait, hold on. There is no structure except for the structure you've already imposed on this. I
it's
mean,
just it's like a recipe for the year, right? It's like
uh,
it's just a guideline. And if it happens, it happens. It's all made with the best of intention.
okay, but let's back up. You said that originally you started doing this because uh, you have the grand dreams of I will own a brewery and therefore I have to figure all this out. Uh,
Yeah.
it sounds like okay, that has now been shelved.
Oh yeah, that's been that
Oh,
that dream's been dead for a long time.
I figured. Yeah, a smart man. Um,
Right?
so I guess then looking back at the schedule then is like what inspires you to then say this is going to be the this year's slate of beers?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to my sort of original goal of I always want to brew a new to me style, use an
Hmm.
ingredient or technique, oftentimes an ingredient and a technique that I don't wouldn't typically use or haven't used before. And so in this year's brew schedule, so this is what I'm working on right now. Um, So this beer, the Mean Brews Czech Dark Lager, everybody here I'm sure is familiar with MHP. Mean Brews is Matthew Harold's YouTube channel.
Hmm.
Um, these these beer kits, brew recipes are available at my local homebrew shop. He works with one of the shops here in Kansas City, to send these around. So anyway, this is a style that I've never brewed before. So it landed on the schedule. How it landed on the schedule, I actually don't know. I went one day, hey, actually, I do have the background. I went to Oklahoma City last year to judge their spring competition. They handed out a bunch of packets of yeast and said, here, take these home, do fun things with them. So I had this random packet of yeast. I had an ingredient that I hadn't used before that is now a beer that landed on my 2026 brew schedule. So a lot of times for me, that's how it happens, right? It's a point in time that I either end up with an ingredient, I walk into the homebrew shop, and a lot of times the first thing that I ask the person behind the counter is, "Hey, what do you have that I don't know about that I need to try out?" And so that was kind of how my original pub ale that's now on its 15th iteration came to be. I ended up with a pound of Simpson's DRC, brewed a beer. Now it's an idea that's been perpetuated for 3 years. So it's just been kind of this crazy evolution of I have this stuff and I got to figure out how to use it, but
Mhm.
but always with that kind of underlying theme of how do I do something new to me and increase my skill, gain more knowledge, and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, but see, here's where you and I have a difference in how we operate. You said, okay, hey, look, I got these ingredients I didn't know what to do, and therefore they go into the schedule. Yeah, like I'm getting new ingredients all the time, so I'm just kind of going, like somehow you are predicting this stuff to go into a schedule, or is this schedule getting built up over time, and you're lying to us about the plan?
So for for example, the yeast that ended up in the Czech dark lager, I've had that yeast in my refrigerator since April of last year.
Ah,
It's not always it's not always evident where it's going to get used or how it's going to get used or even when it's going to get used. But I had this thing, I wanted to try it out. And for that one in particular, it's a new Saf lager
hmm.
strain that I can't remember, E30 or something like that. Um, but it's always something sort of like that with ingredients, right? I either run into
Right.
them, somebody hands them to me, or something like that. For the things that are more technique driven, those are
Hmm.
things that I sit around and think about a little bit more. And I don't just throw this together in January. This is something that's kind of like top of mind towards the end of the year. So I've kind of been thinking about this since like mid-December. Probably the last time we saw each other, I had this on my brain already. And so I'm always kind of making an idea, or making a concept of an idea. Um, you know, but this is just this year in particular. Um, well, so let's step back just a little bit. Last month's happy hour with Matt, where he
Hmm.
was finding his way back to brewing. I was in his position last year at this time. I was like ready to hang it up. And so that kind of inspired some of the brewing that is on this list. There's beers on this particular list that I haven't brewed since the first year that I've been brewing. And so kind of getting back to things like fruit beers, there's a ton of new products on the market that I haven't used since I brewed some of these beers. I typically gravitate towards whole, fresh frozen fruits kind of things. Um, and so to be able to pull in something like aseptic purees or amaretti extracts or something like that, I actually haven't worked with any of those things. So I'll probably incorporate the amaretti or aseptic into the raspberry wheat, a beer that I've brewed dozens of times with whole fruit, just to give a new ingredient to try new technique, that kind
Right.
of thing.
Okay. Trying to think. Yeah, yeah, and sometimes I just totally buy ingredients just to go, oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, it's the walk into the homebrew shop, find something shiny that you don't know what it is, and you just take it home. I'm totally guilty of that then, right?
Yep. All right. And so you're saying now you say, okay, I've already started thinking about this year. You know, you
Mhm.
got this, and so we can see here you've got 12 things planned for this year because you said earlier your intention was, I'm going to brew at least once a month,
Yep.
which I it's funny to me to think like I just remember when I was a new home brewer and like fully sucked into the high energy, super passion of it. It was
Brew
like,
it every 2 weeks, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I'm cycling this shit as fast as I can. Uh,
Yeah.
and like now, having been brewing since 1999, which is now a while ago, um, like looking at that and going 12. Wow, that's pretty ambitious. Yeah, but then again, I also may like I like so here you are, you're highly regimented about what you're doing here. Like I'm highly regimented about trying to get to events that I have to deal with. Like so my big thing is Southern California Homebrewers Festival, which I think Andy and I have both been to. And Southern California Homebrewers Festival is the same weekend that we usually do Big Brew. So first weekend of May. And so like right now I'm sitting here going, shit, I gotta start brewing for Southern California Homebrewers Festival. Like getting things together. Yeah, and that's what I'm doing.
So to that point, right? Like all of these unplanned beers, these ones that I'm highlighting right now, there's a
Mhm.
festival that happens, an Oktoberfest festival that happens like about 10 miles from where I live. I had no intention of brewing these four beers for this year. I'm looking for whatever the fourth one is. I can't remember now. Um, but I had literal no intention of brewing four beers, but this is an event that I have wanted to pour since I moved here 5 years ago. First
Mhm.
couple of years it was canceled. Second year it was or third year it was very small. So last year I wanted to take stuff to an Oktoberfest that were not Oktoberfests, but were traditional German styles and present those things to the public, right? And
Right.
I, I get, I mean, I get wild hairs all the time, and so
Yeah.
that's why this unplanned folder with actually brewed things is always so much more filled out and actually completed than the ones that I planned to at the beginning of the year. Inspiration hits at any time, right? And so
Mhm.
this is the part where, for me, it turns away from regimenting and scheduling and the very matter of fact scientific aspect of brewing and kind of turns more to the chaotic artistic side. Um, and actually found the cider that I meant to talk about earlier. So you talked about surprise cider from one of my other folders. This was actually a surprise. We have a we have a festival here that happens in April, and it's always really crummy weather and whatever, but it's always such a good time. And so last year I brewed a peach habanero IPA that I brewed, probably the last time I brewed it was 9 years ago.
Hmm.
It's been so long that hops that I used back then don't exist in commercial form anymore. I can't buy them from any homebrew shop.
No more Perla.
No, you can still get Perla. It was Glacier that I couldn't get
Oh,
anymore.
shit, you can't get Glacier anymore?
Um, Not anywhere that I could find. But anyway, so I've got this brain full of techniques that I've just acquired over the years. I had a bucket that I had secondaried like 10 pounds of peaches in, and I racked all of the beer off into the keg. And I looked over at the shelf and went, hey, I have 5 gallons of apple juice on the shelf. So I just took all 5 of those gallons of apple juice, stealing an old Belgian technique and racking onto spent fruit,
Hmm.
and fermented 5 gallons of cider for a different event. I tossed in a few grams of fresh yeast, and away we went. So this is the kind of stuff that just happens for me, and I've got a pretty well stocked homebrew supply shop in my basement. So it's like we just brew.
Well, and in that same spirit, the bar that's not really visible behind me is actually an old front school desk or front office school desk from a school in Pennsylvania that shut down. I don't know how the hell it got out here, but I have it, and it's my grain storage cabinet. So I have bunches and bunches of buckets of beer ingredients in there just for that reason. Um, so wait, we got to back. Can you back up to another recipe that you had in there that made me
Sure.
like purple drank?
Okay, so this is a fun thing that the club that I am currently the vice president of does. I hope you recognize that I called it fine malt liquor.
Uh-huh.
So the ZZ hops, um,
Ube Jojo's. Oh my God.
yeah. So we do an ingredient draft every year. It's a fantasy style draft for ingredients, and this year we had like 17 teams drafting. So the basic premise is you draft 10 players and you make beer out of them. And so this is this year's beer. It was initially conceived to be uh, like a white stout inspired kind of beer, only
Mm-hmm.
only purple.
Mm-hmm. And
And
pink.
as you can see, there are no ingredients there that might help turn this into a white stout tasting type beer. Um, so we had to shift a lot. But the intent of this is like always to get people to be creative and try things that they wouldn't normally try, push people out of their comfort zones a little bit. And the people that usually excel in this challenge are people that have good knowledge of ingredients, good knowledge of process, and on and on and on. Because there are things like the draft board sometimes contains packaged ramen noodles, right? Turn them
Yeah,
into
it does.
fermentables, um, and so like it's just a crazy thing that one of our clubs does, and it's really fun.
I would like to think that my long life as a junk food eater, as a computer programmer, has prepared me to use Little Debbie oatmeal cream pies and Ube Jojo's in a beer.
I will tell you, there is so much coconut oil in both of those things that
Yeah.
there is no head retention.
Yeah, and this is where the experience part comes into play for you. Is like my first thought was, okay, in order to get rid of the oil, what I got to do first is turn this stuff into a slurry, and then hope I can get the oil to float to the top, and then take that off.
Yep, we didn't
Uh,
do any of that. We just threw it all in the bucket.
sure, why not? Because it's purple drink.
Yeah, it was just meant to be fun and silly. But I have probably five of these recipes out here. Last year was a root beer inspired hybrid grit ale with like sassafras and hyssop and a whole bunch of weird herbs that we decided to use.
There you go.
So yeah, this is just good times, fun stuff. And yeah, definitely chill it, scrape the lipids off. It's like fat washing whiskey, right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I think like the only people I've ever heard of talking about hyssop as like a thing that you use are really strange brewers and witches.
Yeah.
Just
Hi,
be where it
have we
goes.
met?
Tom, Tom saying you'll make many friends if you ever end up in prison.
I'm always teasing my friends about like what they can bring to the apocalypse team, right?
Mhm.
And this is it. Let's make water safe to drink.
Oh yeah, I had a friend years and years ago. He had a whole notion of I have a zombie squad. And I had like
Yep.
the zombie squad and the zombie team, and I'm trying to remember. I think the zombie team was bigger, and the zombie squad was like the more exclusive place that you wanted to be. And he's like, "We'll put Drew on the zombie squad because he knows how to brew beer and shoot guns." We're like, happy to be of service. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Well, with that having said, ending on a high note of prison hooch, as Drew points out, um, we are at the end of the hour that this thing is nominally scheduled to run. So last call for any comments or thoughts or aspirations before ramen. We're full. No ramen. Uh, anything else that you all want to throw out there as things to say?
Drew,
Andy, I know we have to get one of your aspirations to be to get to Southern California Homebrewers Fest.
True. I
Absolutely,
think the
yeah.
other thing we'd love to hear is feedback on these happy hours. If there
Mhm.
is a guest or a topic or how we can improve them or time of day or anybody's got an opinion on the happy hours, we want to grow these.
Yep. Yeah, these are a fun idea that came out of Doug's brain as like a another way for us to talk homebrewing, but not as sort of formalized as the whole Zyme Live things where everybody's in big chat room or and that's it. So yeah, let us know topics, ideas, people that you want us to talk to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or if you just want to have a general bowl session. Now, admittedly, this one was a little early in the month and kind of took us by surprise because of the holidays. But just so you know, going forward, we are trying to target these on a regular cadence of that second Thursday in the month. Second Thursday of this month just happened to be the 8th, which was like, wait on what?
Wicked fast,
Uh,
right?
yeah, that came around quick. Uh, so in the meanwhile, I hope everybody had fun. I hope that you got something out of it. I hope you got to see Jeff's goofy schedule and again, I say that, but I do believe, and again, this is the reason why I was using the term intentions earlier. I do believe that if you set an intention and a schedule is an intention, it will drive you not necessarily through any sort of mystical stuff, but it will drive you to the get the thing done. Like for me, like a to-do list is an amazing thing because my brain is so scattered and goes. Yeah, and anybody who's ever spent more than 5 minutes talking to me outside of one of these things knows that my brain is going. Having a to-do list is actually a way that I can calm that part of my brain down and go, oh yeah, I gotta get that done. So setting an intention. So there you go. All right. Well, yeah, and guys, we're trying to bang around the times. I think as long as this works for everybody, this might be about the good time because it's not too late on the East Coast. It's not too early on the West Coast. Um, Poor Emily has to sit there in Texas and make sure that we're not going to burn down the Zoom. Gas digital gasoline all over everything. But yeah, again, give us ideas. Doug, Jeff, and I all sit on the community and education forum or committee, and that's exactly what this is intended to do. We do this. We do the forums. We do Zymergy Live. We're working with Amal, who is the editor of Zymergy, the magazine, to also do content there. So treat us as your pipeline to get people to talk about something you're interested in. And also, if you're interested in talking about something, that's even better because we will totally rope you in.
Because it's your club too.
Absolutely. All right, boys, girls, peace, love, and hops. Go have a good one.
Have a good night, everyone.